The doorbell chimed, that small, polite sound that still startled me every time. I don't get visitors. Not anymore. 60 years old. Divorced for almost 15. The echo in this house had become my most consistent companion. Sometimes it felt like the walls breathed with me, slow, patient sighs that came from nowhere and everywhere. That evening, I had been tidying up. Folding laundry. Dusting. Pretending the silence didn't ache. My favorite music from the 80s played faintly in the background, a comfort I didn't realize I'd been clinging to. Then the bell rang. I should have checked the clock. I should have checked the living room, but life doesn't give you warnings like that. When I opened the door, I saw him, tall, polite, impossibly young. 25, maybe. His name was Ethan. He told me so with a shy smile that made him look like a boy pretending to be a man. The delivery from the store, he said, lifting a box almost as big as him, the new vibrating massager. A small rebellion against the quiet. A late-night impulse buy from a commercial that promised relief and renewal. They never said what kind of relief. Oh, right. Of course, come in, I said, smoothing down my blouse, trying to sound like a woman who wasn't flustered by the idea of being seen. The air inside the house changed when he stepped in, fuller, alive, slightly scented with something clean and young. Like laundry soap and rain. He followed me into the living room. That's when I saw it. On the armchair. Half covered with a throw. My collection. 3 small shapes that didn't belong in daylight. 1. The sleek, purple one, peeked out like a secret that wanted to be found. My heart crashed against my ribs. I had meant to put them away. I had meant to hide that version of myself, the woman who still needed warmth, vibration, closeness, from the world. Too late. He set the box down. His gaze moved around the room, casual at first, and then stopped. There was a pause. A split second of stillness so sharp it could have sliced through time itself. He saw. He knew, but he didn't react, not with judgment. Not with surprise, just a subtle shift, the faintest blush rising up his neck. I wanted to disappear. To melt into the floorboards. Just put it anywhere, I stammered, my hands trembling as I swept the blanket over the armchair. Too fast, too obvious. Sorry, just some old, stuff. He said nothing. Only nodded, quietly, and in that silence, something inside me flickered, something I thought had died a long time ago. There's a strange kind of nakedness that comes with being seen, not the body, but the truth beneath it. He knew I was a woman with desires that refused to retire. He knew I wasn't just Mrs. Evelyn, 60, polite, cardigan wearing. He knew I was still alive. The massager, he said after a pause, his voice softer now. Where would you like it? I pointed near the window. Over there, by the light. He nodded and knelt to unpack the box. It was a strange, intimate thing, watching a stranger assemble something meant for pleasure, even if technically it was just 4 aches. Each part he handled looked like a promise. The quiet clicks of plastic fitting into place were oddly mesmerizing. He laid everything out neatly on the rug, methodical, gentle, precise. I watched his hands more than I should have. I shouldn't have, but loneliness doesn't ask for permission. Looks like a complicated setup, I said, just to fill the space between us. He smiled, glancing up. Not too bad. Supposed to be really good for circulation and muscle pain. He hesitated, eyes flicking up to mine. Do you, have a lot of back pain, ma'am? Clara, I corrected softly. Please. Call me Clara. It wasn't my real name. It was the one I used in stories. It slipped out like instinct. He smiled again, hesitant but warm. Okay. Clara. Sometimes, I said. Mostly stiffness. The kind that comes from sitting too long. Thinking too much. He looked at me, really looked, and I saw something in his eyes that wasn't pity. It was curiosity, recognition, maybe. My grandmother says getting older isn't easy, he said, returning to the screws and bolts on the rug. Ah yes, I murmured, my voice softer than I intended. The wisdom of grandmothers. A pause, though this isn't exactly for my golden years aches, if you catch my drift. The words slipped out before I could stop them and then hung there, heavy, electric, dangerous. He froze for just a heartbeat, then smiled, the corners of his mouth tugging upward like he was trying not to. Understood, he said, and for the first time in years, I laughed, a real laugh. It filled the room like something sacred returning home. Later, when he left, I stood in the doorway watching him walk down the path, his figure swallowed by dusk. The house felt different afterward. Not quieter, just aware. I looked at the armchair again, the blanket had slipped a little, revealing that same purple curve of memory. I smiled, not out of embarrassment this time, but out of understanding. Maybe being alive wasn't about starting over, maybe it was about remembering you still could. Welcome back to Evelyn's Secret Stories, I whispered to the stillness, pressing record on my small microphone. Where nothing stays hidden for long. My voice trembled, with age, yes, but also something else, something like courage, something like heat, something like life. Some things are said without being spoken, some things tremble in the air long before they touch the skin. When I said it, whatever small, daring thing it was, I didn't expect him to hear it the way he did. It came out braver than I intended, a little too honest, a little too alive. And then, silence, that kind of silence that hums, thick and electric, as if the world is holding its breath with you. Ethan's blush deepened, a quiet confession spreading across his cheeks. His fingers hesitated mid-motion, hovering over the sleek buttons and wires of the chair. He looked up, and for the first time, I saw it, not pity. Not politeness, recognition, the spark of someone who understands without words. These new ones, he said finally, his voice steadier than his pulse, they have all kinds of settings. A small smile tugged at the corner of his lips, deep tissue, gentle vibrations, for all kinds of relief. He said relief like it had layers, like it meant more than the muscles he was pretending to talk about. And that's when something inside me shifted, the kind of shift that makes you remember your own skin. Do you believe, I asked quietly, that love can happen at any age? He froze, then smiled again, smaller this time, softer. I think connection can, he said. And maybe love is just that, connection that lingers. The chair hummed faintly as if agreeing. I felt it then, that familiar tingle of warmth starting at my chest, spreading outward, not lust exactly, but something older and deeper, the pulse of being seen. I didn't even realize I'd whispered, I'm hoping for comprehensive relief, until I heard my own voice, low, trembling, half laughing to hide how real it sounded. He looked at me then, really looked. And I think we both knew the conversation wasn't about massage chairs anymore. He kept working, his movements steady, methodical. Every sound, the click of a screw, the soft hum of the motor, filled the room in rhythmic waves. I sat on the edge of the sofa, pretending to be casual. My mind was anything but. It wasn't about attraction in the traditional sense. It was the startling intimacy of being witnessed, of not being invisible anymore. He didn't rush. He didn't flirt. But the air between us changed shape, heavier, slower. There, he said at last, rising to his feet. All ready for a test run. The chair looked absurdly luxurious, like a throne I didn't feel I'd earned. Would you mind demonstrating? I asked, forcing lightness into my tone. Just so I know how it all works. He chuckled softly. Of course. He sat down, long legs stretching out, his posture easy, but his hands careful. He pressed a few buttons, the low hum deepened into a slow vibration. This, he said, is for your lower back. This one for your shoulders. And these, he tapped the control gently. For different vibration patterns. His voice was calm, instructional, but beneath it, an undercurrent. His hand brushed the armrest as he reached for the control, exactly where my thigh would be if I were sitting there. A small, unintentional touch, and yet, it felt like the loudest sound in the room. A shiver ran through me, not fear, not discomfort, just, remembering, it really gets everywhere, doesn't it? I said, my voice lower than I meant. He met my eyes again, that look, steady, understanding, unafraid. It's designed, he said slowly, to stimulate all the right spots. He stood up. The chair kept humming behind him, like a witness. The air grew thick, too thick. He didn't move toward the door. Not yet. He just stood there. Clara, he said quietly, then hesitated. I should probably go. Maybe he should have. Maybe I should have let him, but I didn't. Should you? I asked. It came out softer than a whisper, like a plea dressed as a question. My heart was pounding so hard I could almost taste it. He ran a hand through his hair, the nervous gesture of a boy who doesn't know if stepping forward would ruin everything. He paused, his voice catching. I haven't felt like this before. A shaky laugh, barely audible. Not with anyone really, especially not with someone older. That confession landed somewhere deep inside me, a place I'd buried under decades of self-control. I felt my embarrassment dissolve into something rawer, freer. For once, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel past tense. I felt seen. Sit down, Ethan, I said finally, patting the sofa beside me, the same sofa where, hours earlier, I'd hidden my little secrets under a throw blanket. The toys were gone now, tucked away. But their ghost lingered, not shameful, just honest, the kind of honesty that lives in the quiet between two people who've both forgotten what it means to be touched without fear. He hesitated, then took a step closer, and for the first time in years, I didn't look away. Welcome back to Infidelity Life, my voice would later whisper into the microphone, where nothing stays hidden for long. Would you have stopped him, or let the story unfold? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because some stories don't end. They only shift dimensions. He sat beside me, not close enough to touch, but close enough for the air to vibrate with something unsaid, the kind of silence that doesn't ask for words, the kind that hums quietly under your skin. I could feel it, that nervous energy between us, like two people standing at the edge of something unnamed. It's all right, Ethan, I said softly. My hand found his arm, a small, human gesture. His skin was warm beneath my palm, alive in a way that startled me. There's nothing wrong with feeling. And certainly nothing wrong with wanting. He didn't move away, just looked down at my hand, then back up, that kind of eye contact that feels like a conversation all its own. I just didn't expect this, he murmured. Neither did I laughed, a sound I hadn't heard from myself in years. It felt like something young breaking through the surface of something old. I was expecting a delivery, some instructions, and then back to my quiet evening. But life, I smiled, has a funny way of surprising us. He smiled, too. The kind that starts small and reaches the eyes. I squeezed his arm gently before standing. If you're staying a moment, I said, half teasing, I'm going to change into something more comfortable. This blouse feels like armor. In my room, I stood before the mirror, not the kind that flatters, but the kind that tells the truth. 60 years. A body that had lived, lines where laughter and sorrow both left their marks. I reached for a silk robe. Deep crimson, soft, forgiving. It slid over my skin like a quiet apology for all the times I'd ignored it. I let my hair fall loose, silver strands catching the light. I didn't want to hide. Not tonight. When I stepped back into the living room, he was waiting, not fidgeting, not scrolling his phone, just waiting. He turned when he heard my steps, and for a moment, I saw it, the quiet astonishment in his eyes, the kind that isn't about beauty, but about presence. Clara, he breathed, a smile flickering. That's very lovely. I felt a heat bloom in my chest, not from shame but from being seen. Thank you, I said softly, sitting down beside him again. This time, closer, the scent of his soap, faint and clean, filled the space between us. My hand brushed his, not by accident. His fingers, uncertain at first, responded, meeting mine, curling slowly. He didn't pull away. We sat like that for a moment, suspended in the hum of the massager chair, the low vibration filling the quiet like a heartbeat. I don't know what to do, he whispered. I smiled, turning slightly toward him. You don't have to do anything, I said. Just be here. He nodded, but his breathing betrayed him, unsteady, young, real. It would have been easy to fill that space with more, a touch, a kiss, something final and irreversible, but instead, I leaned into the stillness, because sometimes the most intimate thing you can do is not move at all. The silence between us became a kind of understanding, that life wasn't done surprising either of us, that this moment, whatever it was, didn't need a label or a future to be meaningful. He finally looked at me, eyes wide with something like gratitude. I don't think I'll forget tonight, he said quietly. Good, I replied, smiling. You shouldn't. Not everything we remember is meant to be repeated. Some things just remind us we're still capable of feeling. He nodded. Slowly, he stood, the moment trembling between us like a candle's last flame, and then, just before he left, he reached for my hand one last time, a brief, wordless goodbye. After he was gone, I sat on the sofa, my pulse still echoing in my fingertips. The silk of my robe whispered softly as I exhaled. The chair in the corner hummed faintly, a mechanical purr against the quiet. I turned it off. The silence returned. Warm now, not empty. The robe slipped, not as seduction but as surrender, a surrender to the moment, to the truth that time had not erased her longing to be seen. The silk fell open like a sigh, revealing not youth, but living proof, a body that had carried years, joy, grief, and the weight of 1,000 quiet mornings. His hand hovered, uncertain, reverent. He wasn't touching her skin yet, only the air around her, as though afraid his warmth might break something fragile. "Are you sure?" he whispered. She almost laughed. The question was tender, but unnecessary. "I've never been more sure," she said, and she meant it, not of him, but of herself. In that pause between breath and touch, Clara felt something loosen inside her, the years of invisibility, the careful composure, the practiced politeness. It all slipped, like the robe. His gaze didn't flinch. It didn't measure or compare. It simply stayed, soft, searching, human, and in that gaze, she remembered what it felt like to be admired without apology. He came closer. Not in hunger, but in awe. Every motion was deliberate, hesitant, two strangers navigating the map of rediscovery. Their closeness was not about possession but recognition. The warmth of skin against skin was only a language for what words couldn't hold, the ache of years unlived, the beauty of being known again. Time fractured around them. For a moment, there was no 60, no 29, no guilt, no justification, only breath and heartbeat and the gentle astonishment that she was still capable of wanting, and being wanted in return. Later, as silence settled, Clara realized it wasn't the night that had changed her, it was the courage to open her eyes in the dim light and see herself, whole, unhidden, and entirely alive. Time didn't pass that night. It folded, moments overlapped, breath on breath, warmth becoming memory before it even began. There was a point when everything went quiet inside her. Not the kind of quiet that comes from loneliness, but the quiet that follows recognition. The feeling that something long dormant had finally exhaled. Clara lay still, the dim lamplight tracing her shoulder, the outline of her hand resting over his. Ethan's head was against her chest, his breath steady, human, real. For years she had lived in stillness, and now that same stillness held life. She thought, was this a mistake? But the question had no edge. It was soft, almost curious, like asking if the rain should apologize for falling. She didn't feel scandalous or wild. She felt alive. Not in the fleeting, breathless way of youth, but in the deep, marrow-deep way that comes when you realize you're still capable of feeling. The ceiling above her blurred into meaning. Every line of light became a thread pulling her back to herself. She remembered laughter, music, the hum of conversation she'd once thought lost to time. Ethan's presence had stirred all of it back to life. Her fingers moved through his hair, more in gratitude than affection. This wasn't about forever. It wasn't even about love, not in the traditional sense. It was about being seen, truly seen, in a world that had quietly taught her to disappear. She felt the warmth of his arm around her and thought of all the years she had been both fortress and prisoner. Now, for once, she let the gates open. The silence between them wasn't empty, it pulsed with unspoken truths, with the echo of everything they both understood but didn't need to say. Somewhere in the house, a faint mechanical hum, the massage chair she'd bought weeks ago, continued its steady rhythm. She almost laughed at the absurdity. That machine had promised to ease her tension, but it was this moment of reckless humanity, that had reached deeper than any vibration ever could. Later, when he would leave and the house would return to its quiet pulse, Clara would carry something invisible within her, the memory of a night that didn't erase her solitude, but gave it meaning. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was something rarer, a return.